Mr. Secretary, I hadn't planned on going in this direction, but I can't help it at this point. We just had one of my colleagues talk about some of the evil that's happening at our border. There's no longer a rapid DNA test as of June of 2023 because of the Biden administration, which means we can no longer tie children coming across the border with the people bringing them across the border. There's reports of 85,000 children being lost. So far, the best you can give us is that they're not lost, it's just the people are not answering the phone. We're now hearing about children being used and reused, going back and forth to the border because of the cartel. We're talking about slavery, rape, abuse of children, stealing of children. You say that if this was your child, you'd do everything they could to stop it. What about other people's children? How can you remain part of an administration that allows this evil to happen? We talk about it, we're going to take lunch in a little bit, we move on, and nobody thinks about it other than the folks that are being impacted. These parents, that the children being stolen, they can't just give it up the way it seems like the my administration is doing. And let me just say this, because it appears that there's a big hit on private market. Let me tell you what happened to this in the private market. If a private company did the same thing, they'd be shut down after losing the first 10 kids. And then those who would be responsible for it, we'll find them in Owens suits, paying a price for decades because of losing 85,000 children. So I think it's disgusting, to be honest with you. We're not in the 1800s, slave trading. We're not in the 1930s, where we're allowed the Nazis to do the same thing with the Jews. We are seeing this real time. We're sitting here talking about the lives of children, adults, and yet there seems to be no concern about resolving it. Let me do this. I need to say that I've heard your answer, so I know right now that's not on the top of your agenda. There's a plethora of rules coming through our administration, this administration. A new rule called the Non-Discrimination in Health Programs and Activities is an example of one of the rules that HHA members are now have put together. I'm curious, who on your team is responsible for putting together and deciding on these rules? Do you have a team of group of people that do this, that say this is what we're going to do now for this particular industry?
We have a very large team because we have a number of agencies. We have CMS, we have NIH,
okay,
we have
but
DA.
Within those agencies, there has to be somebody. Do you have a small team? That has to be somebody making these rules.
That's correct.
All right, so who are they? Is it possible to get names of these bureaucrats that are changing literally the industries that we see across the board?
I'm not sure I understand, Congressman. That all goes through a public comment period. Everybody sees what we're doing.
Well, I'm sorry?
There's no rule that becomes final that hasn't gone through a public comment where you and everyone else has a
Well, you
chance
go through that
to take a look
process,
at it.
but there's somebody comes up with the rules. We're talking about right now.
Before that rule becomes final, you get to see it. Everyone gets to see it.
I'm not talking about what goes through the process. Who makes up these rules? Who is it sitting at the table? Or you have physicians that are sitting at the table when it comes down to that's going to be impacting physicians?
Yes.
Okay, so this rule you have here, non-discrimination in health program. From what I understand, by the way, physicians do have the religious liberties, right? They still have that opportunity to be able to act based on their religious conscience.
Everyone does.
Okay, so the non-discrimination in health program, would that require doctors to provide gender-affirming care regardless of their religious beliefs?
No one is forced to do anything that goes beyond their.
So even though it's a
beliefs.
rule, they are not forced to do this in their situation, in their industries.
The rule does not force any physician to do something that's against their religious beliefs.
Okay. Well, I was told differently, but we'll make sure we follow up on that one.
Yeah.
If in case.
Go ahead and correct
all right, so I guess in this case here, then the rules really are not rules. It's not just a suggestion.
No, these are rules. These
okay.
are.
All right. So if it's a rule, are you saying then that they can decide not to just do whatever the rule might say then?
If it goes against their religious beliefs, under the law, they have protections for their religious beliefs. Therefore, they would not be forced to do something that goes against their religious beliefs.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I was told a little differently. Let's just wrap up then. I just have a few seconds. We're going to make sure I think American people hold this administration accountable for what's happening at the border. 85,000 lives, innocent children, is not acceptable in this country. No longer. And the fact that you're in a position, in administration, you should have some sway to make sure those that are part of this process are making changes. So,
Congressman, if I could just, in 5 seconds, just respond. If 85,000 children were lost, you, me, everyone in this room would have taken action. That number is inaccurate. That's not a statistic that's real.
so what is the real number? How many have been lost?
That's the thing. They're not lost. They're
They just
there.
not answer the phone. In other words, the sponsors not answer the phone.
Well, Congress did not give anyone in
Okay,
the
now
federal
let me
government
just say this. When you leave it, you give it to a sponsor, they do not answer the phone, you don't know where those kids are, they are lost. Let's just keep, if you don't know where they are, you don't have their address, you can't go and pick them up, you can't look, do a welfare, they
That's
are
not
lost.
accurate.
Okay, with that, I want to
accurate.
yield back my time. Thank you.
Yeah. We'd invite the secretary to send us proof that you know where those kids are.